I told her about my nightmares, then found out her last patient dreamed the same deaths and never woke up. When I first walked into Dr. Celia Vaughan's office, tucked between two ivy-covered Georgian buildings in Hampstead, I wasn't looking for love, I was looking for relief. The nightmares had returned, worse than ever. Always the same. Me, alone in a field of dead birds, hearing footsteps, always behind me, never seeing who it was before waking drenched in sweat. Celia had this calm voice, this hypnotic grace. She wore greys and blacks, tailored but soft, and her eyes looked like they knew things you hadn't said yet. Therapy was meant to be clinical, but from the first session, there was something else in the air. She listened too intently. Her questions felt like riddles. "Have you ever dreamt of dying?" she asked once, before I'd even mentioned the field. As weeks passed, I opened up about losing my mum when I was 12, about the friend who jumped in uni, about how my father used to sleepwalk into the woods behind our house and never remembered it. But I also began to notice strange things. Her clock was always 5 minutes fast, yet every time I pointed it out, she'd say it wasn't. The room was filled with mirrors turned to the wall, and she never touched anything with her left hand. Then I found her name in an old psychology article online. Something about an unresolved case. A man named Aaron Worth, who also suffered from violent recurring dreams. He had died in his sleep of cardiac arrest just a week after ending therapy with her. Same age as me, same symptoms. The article quoted one of his final journal entries. "I feel watched, even when I'm alone, especially in dreams." I confronted her. She didn't deny knowing him. "Some people are more receptive," she said cryptically, "to what's hidden." That night, my dreams changed. I was no longer alone in the field. Celia stood across from me, whispering something I couldn't hear, her mouth moving in reverse. I woke to find scratch marks down my neck. I was alone in my flat. I began recording myself while I slept. The footage was chilling. I'd sit up around 3:12 a.m. every night and stare at the camera for 7 minutes, unblinking, whispering in a voice that wasn't mine. I showed her the video. She watched without blinking, then said, "You've crossed over." I laughed nervously. "Crossed into what?" She looked down. "You should have never fallen in love with me." I froze. I hadn't said it. Not out loud, not even to myself. But it was true. I was obsessed with her. I couldn't breathe between sessions. I found myself outside her office late at night, staring at the windows, hoping to see her silhouette. She began appearing in my dreams again, this time in a wedding dress, walking into a sea of fire. When I reached for her, my arms passed through her like smoke. The next morning, I woke up to bruises around my wrist, like someone had held me down. My therapist told me she was ending our sessions for my safety. She said. I begged her not to. That night, I had the worst dream yet. I was in a mirror maze, and every reflection was me, but some were crying, some were burning, and one had Celia's face. In the center of the maze was a child, screaming my name. When I finally reached him, he whispered, "Aaron is still here." I screamed myself awake. That same morning, I broke into Celia's office. Her flat was above the clinic. What I found made my blood freeze. In the basement were walls covered in drawings, fields, fire eyes, and portraits of me, drawn in charcoal, dated months before I'd ever booked an appointment. There was a file marked Ilias Bell, subject 05. I was subject 5. The others, for men, aged 25 to 32, had all died in their sleep. Their dreams matched mine, and each had written that they'd fallen in love with her. I ran, tried to move cities, tried sleeping in hotels, but the dreams followed, and so did she. On the train to Brighton, I saw her reflection in the window, not beside me, just in the glass. Whispering, I stopped sleeping altogether. Started hearing her voice when I was awake. It was never about love, she said once, echoing through my phone though no call had come in. It was about remembering, and then I did. A repressed memory. As a child, I'd nearly drowned. A woman in grey had pulled me out of the river. I remember coughing, looking up and seeing her face. It was Celia. She hadn't aged. She was always there. Every moment something traumatic happened in my life, there was always a woman nearby in shadows. A therapist, a nurse, a social worker. Always her. I tried confronting her one last time, but her office was empty. The lease cancelled. Her records erased. But I know I'm not the last. Last week, I dreamt of another man in the field. He looked terrified. He called out a name I didn't recognize. When I turned around, Celia was behind me again, smiling. "You loved me," she whispered, "and now you'll watch." When I woke up, I had ashes on my pillow, and the smell of roses filled the room.